Good night, Malaysian 370. In the hours after takeoff, the aircraft disappeared from civilian radar. Its communication systems went silent. For years, not a single piece of the main wreckage was found. Over a decade later, the fate of MH370 remains a haunting question mark, a reminder that even in our hyper-connected world, some things can simply disappear. Let's rewind to that night. Flight MH370 took off from Kuala Lumpur just after midnight. For the first hour, everything was perfectly normal. Then, at 1:19 a.m., came that final .com sign-off. Shortly after, the plane's transponder, the device that broadcasts its location, was switched off. MH370 became a ghost on civilian air traffic control screens, but it wasn't completely gone. Military radar tracked the plane, making a sharp, unplanned turn to the west, flying back over the Malaysian peninsula and out toward the Andaman Sea. From there, it veered south, flying for hours into the vast, empty expanse of the southern Indian Ocean. How do we know this? Because even with its main communications down, the aircraft's systems continued to send out periodic handshakes, brief electronic pings to a satellite high above. These pings continued for about 7 hours after the plane vanished from radar. The final handshake was recorded at 8:19 a.m. Based on this data, investigators concluded the flight must have ended somewhere along a massive arc in the southern Indian Ocean, a remote and treacherous part of the world. And then, there was only silence. What followed was the largest, most expensive, and most complex search in aviation history. Dozens of countries contributed ships, planes, and advanced underwater technology. The search zone was immense, covering over 120,000 square kilometers of rugged, deep ocean floor. For years, the search yielded nothing. Then, in July 2015, a breakthrough, a piece of an airplane wing, a flaperon, washed up on Reunion Island, off the coast of Africa. Experts confirmed it belonged to MH370. It was the first piece of physical evidence, proving the plane had indeed gone down in the Indian Ocean. In the years since, more small fragments have been found scattered along the African coastline, carried by the ocean currents. But the main wreckage, and the crucial black boxes that hold the flight data and cockpit voice recordings, have never been located. The official underwater searches were suspended in 2017, and a private search in 2018 also came up empty. The mystery only deepened. With no definitive evidence, theories began to swirl, each trying to explain the unexplainable. One of the most prominent theories points to an intentional act by the pilot, Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah. Proponents of this theory suggest he may have deliberately depressurized the cabin, disabled communications, and flown the plane to a remote location. They point to evidence that flight paths over the southern Indian Ocean were found on his home flight simulator, though they had been deleted. However, there's no clear motive, no note, and no history of mental health issues. It remains a deeply divisive and unproven theory. Another possibility is a hijacking. Could someone else have taken control of the plane? It's possible, but there was no claim of responsibility, no ransom demand, and no political statement. The silence from any potential hijackers is one of the biggest arguments against this idea. What about a catastrophic mechanical failure? Perhaps a fire or an electrical problem knocked out the communication systems and incapacitated the crew. But aviation experts argue that even with such a failure, the plane's automated systems would likely have sent out distress signals. Furthermore, the deliberate seeming turn and long flight path don't fit well with a sudden, chaotic event. This leads to the ghost flight theory, where an event like a slow cabin depressurization could have incapacitated everyone on board from lack of oxygen, leaving the plane to fly on autopilot until it ran out of fuel. This would explain the long, silent flight, but not the initial, deliberate turn-off course. So why, in an age of satellites and constant surveillance, has MH370 remained lost? First, the sheer remoteness and depth of the presumed crash site in the Indian Ocean makes searching incredibly difficult. The seafloor there is mountainous and plunges thousands of meters deep. Second, the search area itself is enormous. The satellite handshakes only gave investigators a wide arc of possible locations, not a precise point. A tiny error in calculating the plane's speed or altitude could shift the search zone by hundreds of kilometers. Third, there were critical failures in tracking. At the time, continuous real-time tracking for aircraft over remote oceans wasn't mandatory, and the underwater locator beacons on the black boxes have a limited battery life of about 30 days. By the time search teams knew where to look, the beacons may have already gone silent. Finally, in those first crucial hours and days, confusion and a lack of coordination between different countries may have delayed the search effort. By the time all the data was pieced together, the trail had gone cold. But the story isn't over. Recently there has been renewed hope. The Malaysian government has agreed to a new search operation with the private company Ocean Infinity, on a no-find, no-fee basis. Armed with better technology and new analysis of drift patterns and satellite data, they plan to scour a new, highly probable area of the southern Indian Ocean. Simultaneously, the tragedy has forced the aviation industry to change. New regulations now require better real-time tracking of aircraft and longer-lasting black box batteries, all to ensure a mystery like this can never happen again. The disappearance of MH370 is more than just an unsolved case. It's a story about the limits of our technology, the fragility of our systems, and the enduring pain of not knowing. For the 239 families who lost their loved ones, the search for answers is a quest for closure. The world waits with them, hoping that one day, the silence will be broken, and the truth of what happened on that fateful flight will finally come to light from the depths of the ocean. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this story compelling, please consider liking this video, and subscribing to our channel for more deep dives into the world's greatest mysteries. We'll see you next time.